Have you got a dram in hand? Do you perchance know how old it is? And if you do know how old it is, just how much of that age statement do you actually know? Let's talk about that. Hello, whiskey folk. Welcome to another Thursday night. Welcome to the vPub. Say hello, tell us what you're drinking, tell us where you are. Fantastic to see so many of you. And again, it's always amazing to sit here and see that there are people that are excited to hang out with each other, to hang out with me, even to raise a glass and just enjoy a wee bit of whiskey time on a Thursday evening. But of course, I understand that so many of you are picking this up in the replay, and I'm very, very grateful to you if you are. Welcome as well. If you are picking it up in the replay, a lot of people don't realize that the live chat is available on the replay as well. So you'll see a button just under the screen here, and it'll tell you, you click on that for live chat, and you'll be able to see what all the barflies in the lounge are chatting about, whether they're interacting with each other, whether they're sending questions or answers towards me, whatever it may be. It can be quite fun. I noticed a comment from Reb Mordecai earlier this evening before the vPub doors were even opened, and Reb was talking about how it can be distracting, how it's tough for him. He has to concentrate on either chatting in the lounge or listening to what I'm saying. And I have to say that I understand exactly what he's talking about. And it used to be very, very difficult for me. It's a wee bit of a skill that you learn over time, Reb, I have to be honest. But I think it's harder for an aging brain like mine to do that. But you don't have to listen to me continuously. You can hang out and chat with whoever you find in the lounge. Welcome, everybody. Tonight's subject, of course, to quote Menno, who was talking earlier, who left a comment in Patreon, he mentioned the phrase that fits quite well tonight, kicking down an open door. I don't think I'm going to be convincing anybody of something new. I don't think I'm going to be enlightening anybody tonight. But it is kind of nice to, establish what we're talking about when we talk about age statement versus age, or age statement versus a non-age statement, or age statement versus a vintage, or whatever it may be. And then just talk about how important age statement is. This isn't a discussion about age statement versus non-age statement or vintage or anything like that, although that's inevitably going to come into the discussion. But this is just taking a small segment of that controversial discussion that we often have in whiskey, talking about disclosure, and it's talking about the age statement in itself, what it actually means to us, what we take from it, and also talk about what it actually means as an age statement, and look at some of the challenges that a whiskey producer has when they tackle that subject, but more than anything, look at how we can best determine what the age statement means to us and what it's telling us when we choose to hand over our hard-earned for a bottle of whiskey, whatever kind of whiskey it may be. Now, tonight, obviously, being the Aquavitae channel, it'll focus around the Scotch discussion, but we can venture into other areas as well, because this topic covers all whiskey regardless. Anyway, let's jump into the lounge quickly and welcome some of you fantastic whiskey folk and see how you're all doing. As per usual, you can get a hold of me by saying @Aquavitae, and it kind of lights up a wee bit. It gives me a bit of a signal that you're trying to get my attention, and I'll do my best to keep up with the chat, but you're already approaching 200 of you in, so it's going to be tricky. Bobby Parnell from Texas, good to see you, Bobby, saying can't hang around long, but my 2 cents on age statement, for me, they give me a reference point. I expect certain standards based on a whiskey's age, so the age statement gives me a baseline. Absolutely, Bobby. It gives you an anchor point. Gives you that another layer of information in order to help you determine what's in that bottle. Bobby Parnell has just, out of pure coincidence, dropped in a virtual dram saying, "Greetings, friend." Bobby, I'll raise this glass. I'll tell you what's in this glass, and I can tell you it's absolutely delicious. It's a sample from one of you guys. But I'll raise it to Bobby, and I'll say, "Sláinte, my friend, it's always nice to welcome you in here, Bobby. Cheers." This is an age statement whiskey, but it's more than that. Because it's from an independent bottler, independent bottlers tend to be preaching to a different market, of course. There's a lot of information on here. It tells us the age of 20 years. This is a Dillion 1998 from Signatory Vintage. This is a sample given to me by, it doesn't tell me on the label. I would have to guess who this is from, but they gave me 2 Dillions. I'm willing to bet that you're in here tonight, but you've not put your name on the label, so it's really, really tough for me to keep track. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. This could be from Rico. I'm really not sure. Regardless, it tells us, this Dillion from Signatory, it tells us that it was distilled on the 27th of August 1998 and bottled on the 24th of April 2019. Now, to me, it's kind of enough that they give us a rough idea of the month and the year, but it's kind of nice to have the date as well. For example, I was just talking to Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey before I went live tonight, and I could tell him that on the 27th of August 1998, I was in Tenerife with my wife. She wasn't my wife back then, but it's kind of nice to consider that when this whiskey was distilled and perhaps laid down, that I was in a sunnier clime. It tells us the ABV, and it tells us that it's bottled 299 of 473. I think, given that amount of bottles, I'm going to suggest that this is from a refill sherry butt, but the information isn't written on that label there. Regardless, it's delicious. Now, it's not delicious because we have that information, but isn't it nice for us to understand as we sip these whiskies, why is this delicious? It's delicious perhaps because it's Dillion. It's delicious because it's 20 years old. Perhaps it's delicious because it's from a refill sherry butt. All of these things, but the more information that we can get to understand what this sensory experience is that we're enjoying, the better. And I feel the age statements are fairly crucial, but they are not the be-all and end-all. I've had a quick message dropping in, and Vin is saying the sample was from Kresimir Jelchits. Thank you so much, Kresimir. Thank you, Vin, for letting me know that that's who it's from. And thank you for the backup one that you've given me as well, which is a 1999 20-year-old Dillion as well, 1998, 2019. Is that the same one? It's just your handwriting. They're both the same one. So I've got enough to share with somebody. Thank you, Kresimir, my friend. Thank you so much. Sláinte for this delicious Dillion. It's very difficult to hold of any official Dillion, only the Flora and Fauna 16. But if you find it in an independent, in my experience, it's almost always delicious. So yeah, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about age statements, and I want to talk about how they are important. And talk about how that they are crucial. And I would go one further and say that they are much more important than age. And I'll qualify that a wee bit later in the chat. Chris Meara is confirming that it is the same. Chris the Whiskey Bowman is in. Good to see you, Chris. It makes it easier to find something similar in the future if you know more about it, Roy. I couldn't agree more. That's what I was trying to get at there. The more information we have, the more we can understand what's actually happening. Skogsmard is saying, what is the highest age statement in whiskey? I've heard there are some 60-year-old bottles out there, but what about 70, 80 or 90? What about anything bottled 1 century after it was filled? There are 70, 75-year-old bottlings out there as well, mostly from independent bottlers. I think there's really, really old Macallan, of course. But I know that G&M did a 70-year-old, and it would make sense. G&M have been around for long enough to perhaps have stock that's that mature. But while I've never ever tasted something that age, it's quite interesting to hear people talk about tasting things at 50 plus years. I've tasted a couple of 50-year-old plus, and they can be good, very interesting. You can imagine, you don't need to think too hard to imagine what they might taste like, because they do taste very old and they taste very woody. And it's nice to get one that still has a nice bit of balance and bite about it. But most of the time, they're really quite soft and plump and oaken, with a lot of kind of leather notes and dusty notes, sometimes a bit fusty, as we would say in Scotland. Interestingly, if we talk about age and age statements, the oldest whiskey I've ever tried, not in terms of its age, but in terms of when it was distilled, at the Old and Rare show 2 years ago, I tried a 1905 bottling. So it was bottled in 1905. A blended malt from Hoey, Hoey, was the bottler. But it was a 21-year-old, so it was distilled in 1884. Now, it'd been in glass a long, long time. It was been opened in very, very recent years, so it's been in glass for well over 100 years. And I have to say that whiskey tasted remarkably fresh, considering that fact. So we're not talking about that, but it is interesting to consider that way back over 100 years ago, they were putting age statements on the whiskey back then. And I believe that while it wasn't legislated like it is in modern times, I believe that the whiskey in that bottle would have been every bit 21 years old. Scotch in the Bayou is here, Leanne. So good to see you. Hello there, Aquavita, and all you wonderful barflies. Slant you all. Chris Banks Wildlife is here. Hello from Mull. Wow, Chris, you're out on Mull. Fantastic. Good to welcome you in here. I hope your Wi-Fi holds up. Laddie from Rombout is in. He's saying age statements in combination with cask information. Absolutely. Provide me with information what to expect, flavour profile, and whatnot. Doesn't always guarantee, but it kind of gives you a hint or a suggestion. It can help a lot. Gal Sean is here. We just had a blind tasting evening about the same topic. The results are very interesting. Yeah, not always what you might expect. Of course, we always have to stay quite open-minded in whiskey, and the more that we enjoy whiskey and the more we sip as we go forward, the more I think whiskey teaches us to stay open-minded. Always have the ability to be surprised. I mean, what's the point otherwise, right? David Owen is saying, I would say that at some time, 100-year-old whiskey will be released. I guess that there's an inevitability there. I wonder what it'll be like. I doubt I'll get a chance to try it. Jimmy Legg is saying 35-year-old Brora is the oldest for me. Not okay at all. Come on, we're speaking about a different sport here. 35-year-old Brora, I imagine that's one of the special releases, Jimmy. Absolutely magical stuff when it's done well. If it's mid-70s Brora, maybe a wee bit early to mid-70s, I can imagine it would be pretty perfect. Chad Adams is saying, what is your views on gold fingering? So what is gold fingering, Chad? Is that an Americanism? Is that the same as our teaspooning here? Gold fingering. Wow. Never heard it. And Ilad is saying oakiness. Lol. Yeah. Whiskey Weekend Dramas here. Just had a Dillion single cask 7-year-old out of an ex-sherry Kalila cask. Amazing it was. Lots of wood and sherry flavours and a little peat. And also, wow, I wonder who bottled that one. That sounds very interesting. Red Mordecai is saying, remember the Glendronach 15 was actually 19 years old. Absolutely, Reb. It's one of the points that I'm going to make when we talk about age statement versus some other things. If you're staying around and hanging around tonight and stay till the end, you might get a kick out of seeing me participate in my own quiz. It was very popular back in January when I had Whiskey Jason on from Germany. He prepared a quiz on the Aquavitae quiz at the end template so that I could participate in that quiz. I liked a couple of things about it. I liked the participation. I liked the enjoyment. I liked hearing the feedback from you guys that it was good fun. And I also liked the fact that it kind of let me off a wee bit and I didn't need to provide my own quiz. So we've got Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey. He's going to pop in towards the end of the show and he's put a 10-question quiz together for us so I can participate in the quiz at the end tonight. So if you're up for that, hang about a wee bit more. Also want to make a wee bit of an announcement as well with the coins. As I look down, I've got a new coin here from Wessex Whisky Club. Very cool it is too. Very English in styling and colours. But I quite like it, quite a striking design. Wessex Whisky Club down in Winchester, I think. But we did a bit of a coin swap and I got their coin from them and I exchanged one of the Aquavitae coins. But the reason I bring these up this evening is that I promised everybody that had bought a previous number, a batch 1, batch 2, that I would hold on to their number in batch 3. I'm going to have to get to the point soon that I release those. I've held on to them quite a bit longer than I said I would. Because these things, you know, who's in a rush about these things, okay? I will keep them aside for you as long as I can, but only while I've got stock of the higher numbers available, which I have just now. Once those higher numbers diminish in stock, then I'm going to need to start eating into your numbers that have been reserved for a wee while. So you don't need to buy this from me now, but if you do intend to buy it, please get in touch and let me know, and I'll keep it. I'll keep a hold of you. Well, I'll keep it for as long as you need me to keep it, honestly speaking. But I just want to know that you do actually want it, and you will get it at some point. But yes, I've got stock available of the higher numbers. As I say, once those start to run out, then I have to start releasing some of the reserved numbers. It's just the way of it. Eddie Blundell, that looks like a new name, Eddie. Welcome in here. You're very welcome. He's saying cheers and good evening. Good evening to you as well, Eddie. Just as the chat jumps again. And Radek is in. Good to see Radek. He's saying it's quite difficult during the Aquavitae stream. You're talking about chatting to each other. Perhaps it's difficult. The thing I use is that once I'm having a discussion with somebody, I just kind of lock onto their little icon and I'm looking for that coming up again and then just kind of scanning the other chats and things. It's quite difficult when I'm participating in a lounge in somebody's live stream. It can be very, very difficult. I think I've almost missed a super chat there from a friend over in Texas, another one from Texas as well, saying Zach Andrews, catch the beginning now and we'll finish up later. Cheers, Roy, from Texas. Slancha to you, Zach, and thank you for dropping in and thank you for your drama, friend. Slancha. Really loving this diluting. Really loving it. And I've also had a Dramin from Royale 431. Now I know who that is, but I've forgotten. I hope you don't mind. I hope I'm not offending anyone. Just switched on to hear someone who looks like Roy talking about gold fingering. Have I accidentally locked on to the wrong channel? Yeah. I have no idea what it is. Maybe somebody can enlighten me. Thank you, my friend, for your virtual drama. I'll raise a glass and say Slancha to you as well. Perhaps you can remind me who you are. That's the trouble with all these usernames, because I guarantee you that people inside from email, their regular name, their username on YouTube, their username on Instagram and all over the place can be vastly different and it can be tough to keep up. But I know who that is and I just can't remember. Regardless, Slancha for your dram. And I'm going to pour a sample that's been sent to me by somebody else. This is from Dancing Midgie up north in Scotland, in the very, very north of Scotland. And I did a bit of an exchange for him recently for a bottle of Coquerin 8-year-old. I tore through mine. I destroyed it. It was fantastic. That's a 2019 release, cast strength 8-year-old Coquerin. Everybody's raving about it. You might remember at the start of December, I did a Coquerin live stream where I talked about it being my producer of 2019, and deservedly so. But we did a bit of an exchange, but he also sent down a sample for me as well, along with a sample of an Arran. And it's perfect for me to sit here and sip tonight. It means that I can keep my bottle intact for a wee bit longer as well. But this is a perfect example of how age is less important than age statement. Let's imagine that Coquerin just put out an edition and called it Coquerin Cask Strength, because they could absolutely do that, like so many producers right across the spectrum do. And let's imagine that there was no information on that bottle to tell us how old it was. Would we taste it? Yes. Would we enjoy it? Absolutely. But Coquerin have had the confidence to put a single-digit 8 on the label. Now, I'm not going to say too much about this because there's other things that could be on this Kilkerran label, if I'm honest with you. For example, being typical Springbank, much the same as the Springbank 12-year-old cast strength. I just picked up one of those today. The 2020 release is out. The only way you can tell the difference from one release to the other is perhaps colour, which is quite obvious in this instance, and ABV. There's no batch information on here. There's no, it doesn't go into rhyme and reason. It doesn't go into any real detail on the cask. If you talk to anybody there, if you speak to somebody at a tasting, they're quite happy to talk to you about everything. But they keep their packaging quite simple. Regardless, you can see that there's a big clear 8 on the label there. And I think that's wonderful confidence, because in the last 30 years, the Scotch consumer has been taught that age is super important, and anything in single digits is deemed young. A regular consumer will see something with a single digit age statement and assume that it's cheap or young. They don't know that it's got far more to do with the distillate, the quality of the distillate, and of course, how that distillate has been matured. How active is the cask? What quality of cask was used, and how well was it cared for during its maturation? And then when it was put together at bottling time, how much care and effort was put into making it as good as it could possibly be? All those factors are far more important than the age. So it's easy just to say that actually the age isn't that important, but it's a vital part of the makeup. It's a vital part of the experience. It's a vital part and component of the whiskey. Everything I talk about tonight will be preaching to the enthusiast, which I'm sure the vast majority of you guys are, very firmly so. Greg's Whiskey Guide is in. Hi, Greg. Good to see you, saying, for me, the bravest distillery these last years was Benromac, when they dared to release a 5-year-old. Absolutely. While many people were talking about non-age statement. And it's when these producers do that, when Benromac take that step. Now, of course, it can't just be 5-year-old for the sake of a 5-year-old. It has to be a good 5-year-old. It has to be a 5-year-old where they say, okay, this is young, this is 5 years old, but we think this is enjoyable, we think this is nice. We think people that like spirit-forward, spirit-driven profiles, that like our spirit, they can taste our spirit in this 5-year-old. It's been matured this way in these casks, and we've released it at 5 years old, and we're very proud about it as well. Now, the chances are that Benromac are going to need to do a lot of additional layers of marketing, but they should be applauded for doing that, and we can help them with that marketing. We can taste that whiskey with a very open mind, knowing that 5 years old doesn't always designate a young whiskey. And we can taste it, we can try and assess it, and when it's good, we can evangelize about it, we can share it with friends, we can recommend it to other people and tell them not to be put off by the fact that it's 5 years old. And also point out in the same breath that some of the whiskies that they're buying don't have an age statement on it at all, and can be 5 years old and younger. Thomas McCrory is saying, quite rightly, that Benromac kick ass. A couple of expressions are out there at 43%. Fine, I don't have any great issue with that at all. Of course, as an enthusiast, I would prefer it was 46. Then we have a guarantee, or not. Let's say not a guarantee. Then we have a better experience and more of a chance of it being unchill filtered. But they do bring fantastic expressions out there. They do bring expressions out there at higher ABV. Their 100 degrees proof version is a cracker. The 15-year-old is very, very good. But lots of things coming out of Benromac, following very, very kind of old school profiles. It can be quite a dirty whiskey sometimes. So if you're into that kind of thing, you're going to really love it. But I often recommend Benromac, and I've found it to be very, very tasty recently. Spiritworks Thomas saying, let's not forget how much flavour that 4-year-old Ben Nevis has from the Good Spirits Company from Ralphie. So again, we're talking about age. And I've got this here. I've got this here to talk about this very thing tonight, that if I poured this for anybody blind, there's no way that they would suggest. They might be able to pick out the cask. They might be able to pick out the high ABV. They might even be able to pick out the style and profile of Scotch. If they're really good, they might even be able to pick out that it's a peated Ben Nevis. I doubt it, honestly. But there would be few tasting this blind that would be brave enough to gamble that it's as young as 4 years old, and it says on the label, aged 4 years. Now, if you're in a shop and you walk up and you see that 4 years old, I can understand that you might not be excited to engage with it, right up until the point that you try it, and it completely redefines your perception of what a 4-year-old whiskey might taste like. This whiskey is all about the fact that it's a peated Ben Nevis, absolutely, but this whiskey is all about the cask. It's all about the cask that it came from. Now, there isn't a lot of detail on the label of the cask. I can see here that it says something about the number of bottles. I think, yep, 40 of 155 bottles. Now, I know this is from a sherry cask, maybe a recharred cask or retoasted or whatever it may be, but up from 155, that would suggest that it's maybe a split cask, if they've maybe split it with someone else. I'm not sure, I don't know the details, but this is fabulous stuff at that age. And when I shared it on the channel, you might remember me talking about, I have to stop myself saying it's good for 4 years. The 4 years isn't a qualifier, it's just very, very good, very engaging whiskey. The 4 years is good. It's just more information to teach us more about whiskey. If we know that this is a 4-year-old because the age statement on the bottle tells us so, we learn so much more from that experience. Which meant that when I was up in Perth recently and I happened across a Carnmore offering, I got to try a couple. I got to try a 7-year-old. Oh my goodness, what was it now? Was it a Linkwood? Something I don't even remember. A 7-year-old, and I got to try this 6-year-old Glengarry. Now, this isn't opened. It's only the sample I tried in the shop. But I was able to try the sample in the shop and know right away that this was about £40. This was fairly inexpensive for a very well-presented whiskey. It tells us a lot about it. It tells us it's 306 bottles from one cask. It's a bourbon barrel. It tells us the barrel it's from. And the ABV, 47.5% ABV, not bad. But for £40, very, very natural product. Very, very clean example of Glengarry, which you would struggle to get from Glengarry directly. I'm really glad to have this. I'm looking forward to opening it. Looking forward to sharing it with folk and getting their feedback as well. Of course, I'm going to be tempted to pour it for them blind and ask them to guess, does it taste like a 6-year-old whiskey to you? Because it doesn't. There are 17, 18, 19-year-old whiskies out there that taste just as spirit forward as that does. And it's all about the cask that they've been matured in. But isn't it nice when we have that extra layer of information? John Paul van der Hoven is here saying, how about top prices for young whiskies? €150 for 5-year-old Octomore. Octomore is very small batch. They're doing lots of experimental things. You'll never hear me evangelizing about Octomore. I haven't ever been able to pay the joining price for an Octomore. I've tried lots of samples, lots of drams, lots of tasting events. Friends have bought Octomores that I've been able to try. I find them expensive, and yes, I mean, there are fantastic Octomores, very, very engaging, delicious Octomores, and there are some that are a bit less so. But I find it expensive. But the reason I find it expensive is more for the engagement, and it's kind of maybe in the past I might have said that's a horrendous price for a 5-year-old whiskey or whatever. But honestly, if the whiskey was really, really good, I would probably be tempted to pay the money for the engagement. But I think you make a good point, Jan Paul. I call you John Paul, don't I? Jan Paul van der Hoven. I think you make a good point. They're doing a different thing there. They're marketing a different thing. And it's up to us whether we want to engage with it or not. Pete Header saying the fact that we talk about 5-year-old instead of 5-year-old young in itself is a statement about age. 5 years young, yes, 5 years old. That's just a turn of English, isn't it? But I agree. Hoyt is saying, I feel some distillers are giving us single-digit 2 for the UK. I'm not sure what you mean there, but I feel some distillers are giving us a single digit. 2 for the UK. Perhaps you need to expand for me, Hoyt. I apologise for not picking you up. Rico is saying, would love to see 4 years age statement and be definitely interested. Absolutely. Luna Aaron's saying, I tried a 5-year-old Stoisha and it was a no-brainer. Stoisha, I believe that to be peated Bunnahabhain. Going from memory, I think Stoisha is peated Bunnahabhain. Luna Aaron's saying, immediately bought it. Good for you, Luna. So again, Luna tried a 5-year-old and went ahead and bought it. And I think that's pretty key. And I think there's going to need to be a lot more of that around. There's going to need to be a lot more sharing and talking about and tasting and going to events and things where the good young stuff, and I don't want this to be, I don't want this to turn into a discussion about, yeah, just release young whiskies, it's fine. But I want it just to be a layer of information. I don't want it to be what defines the release. I think that if the whiskey's good, it's good. And if we see something there with a young age statement, especially if the price is a wee bit high, then we can ask a question of the retailer. And if it's an online retailer or whatever it may be, we can go out there into the community and we can ask, has anybody tried this? But not be put off buying it simply because it's young. Aye, laddie, Whiskey Nerd is saying, I have actively looked for a young Lefroy just to see the peat profile and how it works. Fantastic case in point. Because if you go out, you could probably quite easily buy young Lefroy, but you would be guessing. It wouldn't tell you on the label that it's young Lefroy, like a select or something like that. Jens Roger Christopherson, his Compass Box have intentionally added a small amount of 3-year-old into what they call the Deluxe Blend, just to be able to provoke with a large 3 on the label. Again, it's this challenging, this kind of legacy that we're walking into in whiskey generally, where we've been taught over decades, and these decades aren't really valid anymore. The history of Scotch whiskey and where it's come from is wonderful. But the dynamics that were at play during the 60s, the 70s, maybe as far back as the post-war boom, going through in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, those days are gone now. They're long gone, and we're in a different era now. We understand much more about the whiskey making process. There's much more emphasis on wood management, cask management. There's much more control over the distillate and controlling the actual distillate that comes out and making it more consistent and making it more to a specific profile than there's ever been in the past. And there's more focus on a much more artisan craft style. I know I struggle sometimes using those words, but just to get my point across about something that's more for a discerning palate, more for an enthusiast, more for somebody who's willing to take the time to sit and enjoy and analyze the sensory experience of the whiskey and not just have it as a drink. Things have changed. My concern, and the point I'm making here, is that the industry hasn't moved with those changes. It's not moving fast enough. And so much of it is legacy. The Scotch Whisky Association, the regulations in place about age statement and what can be displayed in a bottle is unacceptable on every single level. It's unjustifiable nowadays. I can think of very few categories. I can think of none outside of alcohol, honestly. There are other alcohol and spirits and wine and beyond that you don't need to disclose everything that's in the bottle. That surely has a limited life. There's nothing. If you decided that, oh, I've got this product, it's whiskey. Here, this is how I make it. It's fantastic. Try it. Yeah, it's wonderful. I want to sell it, and this is how I want to present it. Somebody would say, well, what you need to put what's inside it. There's no way that would be acceptable in modern times. The ability, things like, I don't want to digress, but adding a sugar product in there, E150A caramel, adding it in there and just not telling anyone. Sorry. 40 years ago, everyone's drinking blends. You want to keep it consistent. Whatever your excuses are, fine. You're changing away. You can't use Pacharit. You can't use that in the casks anymore. All of these reasons. It's 40 years ago. It's today. You cannot put sugar in whiskey and not tell people. Stop. Because what's happening is other countries, other producers, other products are available where they clearly say that they don't, and it's not permitted. And it's only a matter of time before somebody shines a torchlight on the countries. And I'm not just talking about Scotland. This is not only Scotland that suffers from this. We can't keep doing it. And I'm not even, most of the discussion tonight is going to be about enthusiasts whiskey and the whiskey that points to us as enthusiast independent bottlers, special editions, natural presentation, small batch stuff, of course. And it's going to probably have less to do with mass market consumer pointing whiskies that are 40% ABV. Consistency is far more important than perhaps how they get that consistency and things. I understand all of that. But in a very general sense, as a consumer and a producer, there's a relationship there, and that relationship is coming to a point now where we have so much information available to us that that trust could potentially be broken once consumers discover that your whiskey's chill filtered. It's not what you expect. Your whiskey is watered down and watered down heavily without any education as to why that's the case. Your whiskey has sugar added to it. And by the way, we don't even need to tell you how old the whiskey is. And we are actively stopped from telling you if we blend that together whiskies, we are prevented from telling you the makeup of that whiskey due to regulations. It's broken. Surely it's broken. Somebody challenge me and I'll try and catch up with your comments. Everyone is saying we have a right to know what we put in our bodies, correct? It's a fundamental in modern times. It should have been a fundamental forever, but we're just kind of catching up to these concepts now. Ingredients has to go on a label. All of it. And Highland Hopper Stewart is, you missed a virtual dram from Whiskey Crusader. I do apologise. Whiskey Crusader, Matt, you star. Matt, let's talk about the collaboration we were going to do. I sent you an email. I hope you got it. So glad I could make it today. Sláinte to drinking fine old whiskey. Matt invited me onto the Whiskey Crusaders channel in the States, and I would love to come along and hang out with you guys for a wee while. Let's see if we can make that happen on your terms, my friend. Thank you for your virtual dram. Sláinte Vara. Matt, the hardest guy, the hardest working guy in whiskey. Sorry, I was interrupted there by, I'd forgotten I'd poured that Kilkerran. Enough has been said about this. Yeah, I don't need to say any more. I got a bit of an infection in my throat last week and I'm on antibiotics. I'm just on the tail of them now, but it's affected everything. It's affected what I eat and what I taste and things. Even I had a beer with dinner and it tasted bizarre. But this Kilkerran is powerful enough to just power straight through any kind of taint that I'm getting from antibiotics. It's such a powerful, enjoyable, striking, and dare I say, virtually unique whiskey. Just wonderful stuff. It's very, very difficult to get a hold of now. Honestly, I'm very grateful to have a wee bottle there and backup. And I'll do my best to share that one as quickly as I shared the last. Richard Hall is here. Richard saying, talking of Carmore, I also bought a £40 bottle from them, Bunnahabhain 5-year-old, and extremely nice too. I think a lot of independent bottlers, you're going to see this. You're going to see where it's perhaps more difficult to come across stock, honestly speaking, it would seem. So you might end up seeing that where in the past you saw lots of teenage age statements, lots of 20-year-old Glenord and 17-year-old Tanninic and 19-year-old Dulhuan and all of this, that perhaps that you're going to see younger age statements coming along. What I have to say is with most of these things is try before you buy, but don't discount the experience based on the age statement, because some of these stocks from 20 years ago, 25 years ago in the 90s and things, versus how some of the more recent stocks have been cast is different. Not all, but a lot of them. Some of the nicest experiences I've had with whiskey in the last 2 years have been with very young whiskies. Of course, I'm talking about international world whiskies, certainly talking about American whiskies, Texas whiskies, etc. But I'm talking about domestic Scotch as well. Some fantastic young expressions, even official bottlings. I've just talked about Kilkerran 8 over my shoulder. You'll see I've got a backup bottle of Talisker 8. Fabulous, fabulous stuff. There was a huge mass market release of 9-year-old Lagavulin, and despite its ABV, 46% ABV, I mean, I'm very happy with that. But despite that, this was one of the easiest drinking, most enjoyable Lagavulins of recent times. Now, we can guarantee that, yes, there's probably colour in this. Bit of a shame about that. Certainly, there's no age statement to suggest otherwise. Sorry, there's no information on the label to suggest otherwise. But again, Diageo were confident enough to put an age statement on there in single digits. And of course, in 2015, they'd already released their 2015 or 16. They'd released their 8-year-old age statement as well, and it became part of the core range. 48% ABV helps that whiskey a lot. But younger whiskies do younger peated whiskies do very, very well for people who love peat. And that 8-year-old Lagavulin gave a completely different side of Lagavulin, and it was widely celebrated by everybody, honestly. It's a great whiskey. And this is a decent whiskey as well. This is a bit more easy drinking than the 8-year-old, I would say. But you have to applaud them, 46% ABV. Decent stuff. And it's nice to see the bigger producers putting younger age statements, single-digit age statements out there as well. Just check my messages to see if I'm not missing anything. When I monologue like this, I miss so much of what you guys are talking about. I apologise. Donald Rash is saying the label doesn't necessarily need to have an age statement. Good to see you, Donald, and I agree. I wish more distilleries would follow the Bruichladdich route where we can easily look up the information online. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about reasons that a product might not have an age statement on there. We're talking about something like, let's take a Laphroaig Lower. Let's say a Laphroaig Lower. This is a product that I've been in tastings with people from Laphroaig, informed tastings, well-guided, well-hosted tastings where they've explained to me what's in Lower. Lots of nice, high-quality whiskey goes into that bottling, but there's also some young whiskey that goes in there as well. And to suddenly slap a young single-digit age statement on there, and I'm not even going to suggest an age, but certainly in the low single digits, would betray that whiskey and the whiskey experience. I understand that. What's the problem with telling us that on the label? And if you're not confident enough to put it on the back of the label or something, why don't you put something in place on your website, something that people that are only enthusiasts, people that are genuinely want to invest time in your product by going and looking on your website and digging deep, why don't you provide the information there to say, Laphroaig Lower, this is the vision of Laphroaig Lower, this is why we put it together, and this is why we mix older stock with young, vibrant, sprightly stock to bring this, the Laphroaig Lower experience. So there's that. I understand why that's a non-age statement. And I understand the challenges that any producer will have with the ridiculously archaic Scotch Whisky Association regulations there. But it doesn't mean we can't challenge it. It doesn't mean we can't ask. And it doesn't mean that Laphroaig can't do a Compass Box / Bruichladdich style model where they can give us the information if we dig deep and hard enough. Then look at another non-age statement. Let's use an example like Tomatin Legacy. And I bring that up as an example because I actually really enjoy the Tomatin Legacy. You've seen that I've used it in a couple of blind challenges as well, and it's always proved very, very... it's a decent whiskey for the price, and it performs well. But that's a price point whiskey. So what you have in the Tomatin Legacy, like a lot of those non-age statements, is that you've got the spirit. It tends to be a little bit more spirit driven. And the way that they're adding, let's say, a sense of maturity or depths of engagement to that is they're using active casks. Maybe it's first fill or first fill bourbon or virgin oak or whatever it may be to bring on the young spirit. And that is put out there to be a price point whiskey. They're trying to attract people into whiskey by making it affordable, but still making it tasty and enjoyable. And they're using young spirit to do that. And they're using practices that there is nothing wrong with. especially when they tell us about it. Now, oftentimes, in the case of Deanston Virgin Oak, and in the case actually of Tomatin Legacy, there is a bit of a hint on the label there. It does tell us a little bit of how they're doing these non-age statements for the lower price point. But it would be nice if they were allowed to say more. It doesn't need to be on the label. It would be nice if it was. But they could certainly put it on the website. Anytime I've been at tastings with Tomatin people, anytime I've been at tastings with Deanston people, even Lefroy people, they tell you so much more because they're not restricted. And oftentimes they're proud to tell you the cask makeup of some of these expressions and even the reasons why that some of them are non-age statement. There are reasons oftentimes that these things are released in that way. But it's all about just disclosure and transparency and not treating us like the idiots that we perhaps were 40 years ago when we chose our favorite brand and we bought that favorite brand time and time again because it wasn't something that we appreciated for its sensory experience. It was just something that we drank, and we drank consistently. Ben Demon Hunter is saying, thank you for your evangelism of Tomatin Legacy. It's very, very inexpensive. You can buy that £25, certainly sub £30 regularly. I think the RRP on it is about 27.28. You can often buy it for 22. You don't need to wait till it's on offer because it's worth £28, honestly speaking. It's a decent whiskey. It is spirit driven and it is quite sweet, bourbon cask, but delicious. And you only need to look at one of my blind challenges, the one that I did live in December, or Vin, No Nonsense Whiskey, who's going to be on a wee bit later tonight. Non-age statement, Tomatin Legacy. He put second only to a 27-year-old cask strength SMWS liquid. Peter Wilcox is here saying, here, I just say hi to my wife, Dee, please. She loves Tomatin Legacy and is shouting at the TV, agreeing with you. Cheers. I'll do better than that. I'll raise a glass to Dee and I'll say yes. We both have a decent taste in our budget whiskies. Cheers, Dee. Slancheva. I'm going to do something that I've not been doing a lot recently because I've been a bit lazy about adding water. And that's a mistake, I think, because you can often really you lose a lot of the whiskey experience by not adding a few splashes of water, a few drops of water, certainly. But if you get to the point that you're conditioning your palate and your brain just to have high ABV whiskies all the time, you're kind of dialing out a lot of whiskey experiences at the softer end, at the 40% and the early 40s, which are often absolutely wonderful. So it's nice just to kind of play with your whiskey, add water, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. Just a couple of drops at first to see how that chemical reaction mixes things up, to see what it does to the dram. And then just kind of a few drops more, keep going down, half a teaspoon at a time, whatever you want to do. I know it's a bit fussy and fiddly, but it can be fun. And really, you get so much more value out of a bottle of whiskey doing that. So I've put a decent scoosh of water in my Kilkerran. I want to share something with you because I was really proud of this. This is the, I'm not an SMWS member anymore. I let it lapse at the end of last year, but I'm going to join again because there's a venue opening in Glasgow that I think could be really cool. One of the biggest benefits and values I got out of SMWS was the venues through in Edinburgh, but it's about an hour's train journey for me. To have one in Glasgow would be amazing. But Matt Bishop, Whiskey Games UK, Matt, sent me through his copy of the SMWS chill filtered magazine, or unfiltered magazine, I think it's called actually. And they've got their new logo and things on the cover. This is a bit of a relaunch of branding and things. I liked the old SMWS logo. I thought it was very, very good, straight, honest. This is a bit more fancy. I think it's okay. I think it's nice enough. Still features the vaults itself, kind of front and center. You see this little ramped staircase. This is actually the entrance to the vaults in this section down here. I'm not sure how much of this building they actually own, but this is the vaults through in Leith in Edinburgh. But the reason that I'm excited about this, so many of you know already, is that they did an article, and I was really excited about this. They did an article called Loading. And this was an article about the YouTube community. It was about you guys. It was about us. It was about all this thing that video allows us to do, whether it's live streams or pre-recorded content, whether it's reviews, whiskey topics, any kind of education, any kind of whiskey sharing, this community that's building inside YouTube that we're all enjoying so much. Somebody, Alex Cohen is the author, actually put together a bit of a collection of creators in here over this two-page spread. And yours truly got a mention. Very proud to be amongst this exalted company. Ralphie's here, the Whiskey Tribe, Scotch Test Dummies, Whiskey and the Six Rob. They could have gone on for page after page after page, because honestly, there are so many creators out there. But I was really excited. For me to be part of it, absolutely. But for the platform to be getting that recognition, we don't need to be monocle wearing, trilby wearing, whiskey swilling. We don't need to be journalists. We can be impassioned whiskey folk sharing our experiences. And this platform allows us to do that in a way that we have never, ever known in our history. And I think we live in privileged times. But YouTube has always been a bit of a prickly thing for the industry, for producers, for even traditional printed press and things to grapple with. And I think there's always a bit of resistance. There's a few barriers and things there. So it's nice to see that now a lot of channels have put in their years, let's say. They've put in, and they're letting their product be known and what they do and what place they hold out there in the YouTube community. It's nice to see that recognition happening. I'm very grateful to Ralphie.com. I'm very grateful to the guys at the Whiskey Tribe, to guys that have been doing it for years, like the Scotch Test Dummies, and of course, Rob Whiskey and the Six, and so many, many more channels out there that have been consistently putting out content and building a real value proposition inside YouTube. And I'm very, very privileged to be a part of it. Orange Rule, you star, good to see you in, nestled between Ralphie and the Whiskey Tribe. Exactly. I mean, you can't buy that. Whiskey Bowman is saying, are you saying there is something wrong with my monocle? Absolutely not. It's how you use it. If you use it looking down your nose, perhaps. No, perhaps I shouldn't have said monocle. Actually, one of my favorite whiskey writers actually uses a monocle, Charles MacLean, and he's awesome. So I perhaps shouldn't have used that. Whiskey Straight Alice saying, while I do love high proofs, they're not the be-all and end-all. Some lower proofs are full of vibrance, body, and flavour too. Absolutely. It can be difficult to go from high ABV and pick up something soft and get the full experience. But it's nice when you do find something at lower ABV that proves to you that whiskey can still bring it. ABV is very important to me. I like to see ABV. I like to see the whiskey presented at 46% and above. Not necessarily because I like to drink it at that strength, but I know that there's a bit more effort on the producer's part to present a product that speaks to me more. Orange Will is saying water, absolutely. Jimmy Legg is saying, I don't really enjoy the softer end except for Glenkinchie 12 for some reason. Love that stuff. I'll bet it's a texture thing with Glenkinchie 12. That kind of oiliness, that mouth coating oiliness that it's got at 43%. I like Glenkinchie 12. I did go off it for a while, but I did buy a bottle recently after enjoying it. Interestingly, at a tour, we got to try a lot of Diageo products out at Glenkinchie. But my favourite of the day of the Glenkinchies that we tried was the standard 12. Archeturus, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name right, my friend. I apologise if I got that wrong, but welcome in. He's saying he got a membership with the SMWS for Christmas, and I'm struggling with them. I wonder if that's to do with price point. I wonder if it's to do with geographical location, where you are, or what you're struggling for value. Reach out to the people at SMWS because they're often quite supportive and willing to help. Hoyt is saying the American SMWS has been having events here in Chicago, LA, and New York. I wonder if that's with Ben Diedrich, great guy who does an ambassador role in the States. Michael Finer saying Charlie MacLean will be in Limburg. Fantastic. Always a gentleman to talk to and hang out with. One of my favourite whiskey books ever written is his Miscellany. I recommend it regularly. I gift it regularly. I love that book. And at the Glasgow Whisky Festival, I found myself in the green room with him. It's just me hanging out with Charlie McClayton, and I savoured every moment of it. Very, very wonderfully charismatic, laid-back guy to talk to, and very genuinely interested in me. I was quite taken aback. Anyway, we're chatting away, and I asked him if he would ever consider a revised edition of his Miscellany, and he said he would love to. Whether it'll happen or not, I'm not sure, but it would be fantastic. Jimmy Legg is saying it really is so thick. He's talking about Glenkinchie 12. So maybe it is a texture thing, Jimmy. I'm already almost an hour in. I have to be careful to try and be succinct tonight. And I want to get Vin in a wee bit earlier. I want to talk to him a wee bit about this subject. I want to share a dram with him before we go on, launch into the quiz. And I want to have a bit more Dutch courage about me before I partake in my own quiz again. Although I did okay with Whiskey Jason's quiz, but perhaps Vin's got a few more banana skins and ass hat questions in there. Hey, Jimmy. Glenn Anderson has just bought me a dram, and that looks like a new name as well, Glenn. He's saying, I often like young whiskies better than old. Why? Perhaps, Glenn, not knowing what whiskies you're drinking, of course, perhaps it could be a spirit-driven thing. You like the distillate, you like the taste of spirit, so you like the lighter, fruitier flavours that come from distillate. Perhaps you prefer the active casks a wee bit less. Perhaps you prefer it when the spirit isn't dominated so much by cask. This is just me guessing and thinking out loud, not knowing what your profile enjoys, what you enjoy, your palate enjoys. But I would say that you're not alone. A lot of people actively go for either younger whiskies or whiskies that have aged for a long time in a very quiet cask that hasn't been too active, because that's just what they prefer. Lee Hosey Haddington Whiskey saying Charlie on a vPub would be epic. It absolutely would. And I didn't have the courage to ask him when I was with him. It didn't even cross my mind, if I'm honest. Skippy Van Pob is saying, I'm off tomorrow to about 7 or 8. Did I miss? Yes, I did. I almost missed, Jimmy, a dram from you saying, put it towards your SMWS membership, hoping Glasgow is open by next month. Jimmy, you need to get in touch. If you're going to be in Glasgow next month, you need to get in touch and let me know exactly what your dates and itinerary is. If you would like to say hello, that is. You've been a supporter of this channel for a long, long time. And I know you get in and out of the UK last year without us managing to bump into each other. Let's try not to let that happen again. Willie Dollier is here. Good to see you, Willie. He's saying true enthusiasm versus a salaried journalist. No competition. I think there's always a balance with these things. I think it's nice to have a really nice way to deliver the things that we're feeling. I think no amount of enthusiasm can be eloquent and succinct. There are things that I need to try to be better at, Willie. I would like to have a bit of a journalistic background. I think I could have benefited a lot from that. Could have done me quite well in these days. But I think when it comes to whiskey, we're all just so passionate about it that we just get on the subject. We share as much information as we can. And I think certainly YouTube platform is perfect for that. And it does very well on it. Kilco O'Brien is saying it's a strange ride to be in such a whiskey roller coaster over these past few years. Keep enjoying it as long as you can. And if you find it starting to get stale, understand that it's not the whiskey, it's you. Probably the whiskey and the availability of the whiskey out there has got better in the time that you've enjoyed it, but you've become a bit jaded. I think it happens to us all far too easily. And I think it's nice to have corrections from time to time, to step back and then build up again. I think it's a healthy thing to do. I hope I'm able to take my own advice, honestly speaking. Ben Dietrich is in, saying a monocle would make an appropriate 50th birthday gift, methinks. Well, honestly, I only have a prescription lens in one of these lenses that I'm wearing. So yes, I'm ripe fodder, Ben, for a monocle. Daniel Vermaas, Petehead is saying it, Daniel Vermaas, curious as well. Never stop being curious, right? Peter Wilcox is asking, Roy, what are the two Carnmore bottlings behind you, please? Well, one of them I picked up a couple of weeks ago. It was a 6-year-old Glengarry. I shared it earlier in the show. And the other one I picked up on recommendation. Haven't tried it yet. This was not a try before I buy. I went on trust people that I trust had tried this. This is part of the same outturn as the Glengarry, but this is a 12-year-old Mortlach from a sherry hogshead. So if I know Mortlach, there's a chance that this could be quite dirty, quite weighty whiskey, especially Mortlach from a sherry hogshead. But I'm not sure. I haven't tried it. But I know if it's a good example of a Mortlach, I'm going to enjoy it. It wasn't too expensive. It's 47.5%. 12 years old, £70. Wee bit pricey for a 12-year-old, but that's not what you're buying there. I would like to put this up against the official bottling from Mortlach at the similar age, at same age. But I'd heard so much about this Mortlach that I had to go out and buy it. Maybe I could open this tonight, but it probably wouldn't be fair to it because it'd be a neck pour, and I do have a wee bit of the antibiotics floating around the system. Let's see. Chris Amera's seen dark colour, but we know because it's an independent bottler that it's natural colour as well. In fact, they may even put it on these bottles. It doesn't actually say natural colour on there. Naughty boys, Carnmore, come on, tell us. I guess we assume it with independent bottlers, but it should be on the label. Jimmy Legg is saying, meaty Mortlach, love it. Absolutely, you can often get a real kind of, in the UK we would say beef stock. In the States, I think it's beef bouillon. A really kind of savoury, meaty character from a good Mortlach. When it displays that, and it displays it well, it can be really quite an enjoyable experience. Spiritworks Thomas saying, a monocle also works as a Glencairn topper. Wow, quite a big monocle as well. Chris B is saying, what was the shop in Perth you picked up the Glengarry? It was... oh my goodness, a wines and spirits store. It'll come to me. It was on South Street in Perth. Just at a corner. You walked in the shop, cash register on the right, and the whiskey's in the corner over there. Oh my goodness. Maybe it'll come to me. I apologise, Chris. Jez Batty saying, Jimmy is coming to London and Glasgow. Jimmy is much loved member of the London Whisky Club and coming down for Closed Distilleries event on the 11th of March 2020. The London Whisky Club continue to do amazing things. I'm always jealous that I live so far away from London. I would like to get involved in their events a wee bit more. Very, very knowledgeable folk, very, very generous folk, very good at sharing and very good at coming together. Fantastic sense of community building up at the London Whisky Club. But as Jimmy Legg and myself demonstrate, you don't need to be local to be a member of that club and enjoy the company of those guys when you come into town and you visit London. Jez is your guy if you're interested in what the London Whisky Club are doing. Scotch on the Bayou saying is, what do you mean when you say that it will be a bit dirty, earthy? Yeah, there's lots of different ways to define dirty, Leanne. Sometimes it's kind of an oiliness, sometimes it's kind of tarry, wet rope, sometimes it's kind of agricultural dirtiness about it, but something that draws your attention, something that challenges you. We talk about clean whiskies, very clean whiskies, and that can be fantastic, but sometimes it's nice to get a kind of something that you might associate with a more old school style, a quite dirty whiskey, a Springbank, Ben Romack, a Ben Nevis, just off the top of my head. Other examples of whiskey that often strike me, not all the time, but oftentimes strike me as a bit of a dirty whiskey. Talking about coins, actually, I was talking about these coins earlier. The London Whisky Club have just put out a really cool supporters coin, which features me as well, along with some other creators and social media channels and things. And that's very, very cool too. Jez had actually sent me some artwork that I was going to share with you, but I haven't got it prepared. And I apologize for that. But I'm sure you'll see it popping up on Instagram and places like that as well. Very cool for all you whiskey coin collectors out there. When I get a hold of mine, I'll share it with everyone. Absolutely right, Chris B. A quick Google tells me XL Wines on South Street. That's exactly the shop that I bought it in. Right, Captain 3D said XL Wines, Phil. So they're just like the serial shoppers, you know, they're going around, they managed to hit pretty much every whiskey retail outlet in the UK when they were over here last year. They should have been my first protocol to try and work out what the name of the store was. Yes, XL Wines. I wonder if you made it over to Perth, Phil. I wonder if you actually went in there. Sunday Evening Scotch is saying, speaking of young whiskey, and I know you're a fan of Dalhuin, currently sipping a 7-year-old Dalhuin from Old Particular. Absolutely lovely stuff. Fantastic that you're able to enjoy that. One more thing before I get off this subject of age statement and summarise, is to talk about the difference between age statement. We've talked about age statement versus NAS and the different reasons for NAS potentially. But if we talk about the difference between an age statement and a vintage, so let's talk about, for example, an independent bottler where they would tell you the distillation date, fantastic, and the bottling date, and from there you determine the age. For independent bottlers, it's easier because they tend to be working with smaller batches. It's single cask, or it's maybe a couple or few casks vatted together. So it's easier for them to give that information. But what often is the case is that we see something, if you recall, perhaps Glenrothes of old or Balblair of old. I know that both those producers have changed to a much simplified version with an age statement on there. They used to have vintage statements. And we need to be clear what the difference between that is and an age statement. A vintage means that if you buy a 1999 Balblair, for example, everything that's in that bottle is from 1999. Often Balblair had different releases, and they would tell you the cask as well, which release during that year it was. Fantastic stuff. They would tell you much, much more than their competitors. And I'm going back to when it was vintage statements. But you could be sure that everything was from that year, 1999. Now let's imagine that let's compare it to the current Balblair. So we've got a Balblair 12-year-old, for example. Their entry-level product is a 12-year-old now. The youngest component in that bottle, the youngest component in that vatting was 12 years old. But as we know, as Reb Mordecai pointed out about Glendronach, the revival earlier on, the old revival, we know must have had much, much older stock mixed in with the vatting because they were closed. It's impossible for them to have a 15-year-old because the distillery was mothballed 15 years previous to bottling. So we know it was older whiskey. But that's common practice. Bunnahabhain 12 for a long time, I'm not sure now, but I happen to know that Bunnahabhain 12 of old would often have much more older stock in there to fortify, to lift, to add dimension, weight, age, and maturity to the 12-year-old bottling. And that happens regularly right across the board. That's a good thing. That's somebody taking active steps to make their product better, to make it more interesting. But Scotch Whisky Association regulations do not allow the producer to talk about that when they've done that in that way. It's frustrating, isn't it? So that's the difference between an age statement and a vintage. An age statement can often have much older stock in there, much in the same way as a non-age statement can. Whereas a vintage, you can be sure that it's all from the same year. In summary, and what I wanted to title this live stream tonight is that age statement is crucial. Age statement is very, very important. As Menno said, it's kicking down an open door. I'm preaching to the converted. I understand this. It's all about disclosure and transparency. But unfortunately, we're fighting against legislation. We're fighting against legacy regulation that I think is put in place until somebody educates me otherwise. I feel strongly is put in place to protect money from an era that is no longer valid. Modern appreciation, modern enjoyment of whiskey is not what it was 40 years ago. And I think the legislation needs to change. I think we need to move to be more transparent right across the board. And I think the faster that happens, the better, and the less chance we've got of being caught out. I'm going to share with you a couple of comments quickly. What time have we got? 5 to 11. Wow, we're doing okay. I'll get through some of your comments, and I've got some comments that I want to read out and share with you from the community. that kind of more or less summarise everything we've been talking about. Nigel Slinnislane, have you tried much other English whiskey other than Bimber? The Lakes Distillery Whiskey Makers reserve bottlings at 3 to 4 year old are unreal, in my opinion. I need to try more from the Lakes. I've tried a few from Cotswolds now. Quite interesting. I think that Cotswolds is only going to get better as it matures a bit. Bimber are doing fantastic things at a very young age, of course, but proving that when it's crafted well and looked after and cared for and the cask is right, things can be fantastic quite a young age. Really loving it. I need to connect a wee bit more with a few other English distilleries as well. Whiskey Novice Jim is in saying, evening all, evening Roy. Just popping in and out tonight. Great subjects I'll be checking out in the rerun, but just can't hang around for the live. Have a good one. I know that so many of you have to pick it up in the live because of other pressures, time, work, family, everything. I understand completely. Don't worry about it, Jim, but I'm going to read out one of your comments in a wee minute. Reb Mordecai is saying, yes, it is a great thing, but they must be allowed to state it if they want to on the label. Absolutely, Reb. We agree fully. Jason Cooper is saying good evening. Good evening, Jason, and welcome in. Neil Cochrane is saying we are fighting against Diageo. Well, there is a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that will say that SWA is in essence more or less controlled by Diageo, and there might be some truth in that. Diageo on 28 distilleries. But we're at 130, 140 distilleries in Scotland now. You know, either they are masters of the change or victims of the change, but the change is coming. It has to. We can't continue to not tell people what the product is. We can't continue to put things in the product and not tell people we're putting it in there. It's fundamentally broken. Cascode is saying the thing I dislike about the new Balblair range is now a simple, standard range of core expressions. The vintages embraced batch difference in a meaningful way. I fully agree, Cascode. It's something that we've lost. It is a shame. But I can also understand that Balblair had a harder sell explaining what a vintage was versus an age statement sitting next to it. Even although Balblair was always fantastic, fantastic value. Lots of messages coming through. Jez has sent me through a photo of the London Whisky Club coin. There we go. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see Aquavite logo is there along with Single Malt Vault. That's a CJ. We've got Marvelat Whiskey, Posh Scotch, Whiskey Share, that's Toby, and Spirits People, all on the flip side. And on the A side there, you can see you've got a play on Mind the Gap, the London Underground logo, saying Mind the Dram. So that's another interesting whiskey coin. And I've also seen the new London Whisky Club coin that they're releasing. Their Batch 2 coin is very, very cool. Very cool as well. For those that like these kind of things. Spiritworks Tom is saying also Springbank direct fire wash still generates dirtier flavours as the liquid at the bottom of the still comes into contact with super hot copper, not possible with internal steam pipes. That's right. So direct fire. When they moved away from when they change any fundamental part of the process, there's an inevitability that you're going to change the distillate on the output. Springbank are very, very traditional in that sense. Absolutely, Tom. Chris Meir is saying on chocolate, you have all the ingredients and percent of what's in there. In my opinion, you should do it with whiskey as well. Any product, whiskey, wine, beer, any spirits, any alcohol, any product that you consume. It's absurd that we're even talking about it. Anyway, let's read a couple of your comments. Twitter, this was a fantastic comment from Scotchology on Twitter. Young whiskey can certainly be good, but can be frustrating when trying to figure out why the juice in your glass tastes like it does when you don't know much about it exactly. Like drinking blends and not knowing any of the sources, at that point it's source of a tasty mystery meat. Kind of get that, but blends are blends for a reason. Blends are there to try and be consistent, to try and make the same product time and time and time again. And it's not really meant for enthusiasts to engage them so much as it's just a nice drink most of the time. It can be delicious. And yes, it's more of a mystery as to what is making this delicious. What component in here am I really connected with? Is it the diluyens? and the Klein leashes and that Johnny Walker Blue that's really delicious, is that what's given it this lovely texture and its softness and its fruit. It's difficult to tell, absolutely. Malt Review, Jason, through Patreon, said, age statements matter, but not to the degree that many place upon them. For instance, I had a 40-year-old Glendullan last night, a ridiculous price, but a fairly pedestrian whiskey. Compare that to a Cairo Rye and it's night and day. Also consider the slightly misleading Strathearn release from Douglas Lane when it comes to the use of dates and age. Let me show you what he's talking about, because I was intrigued by this, and I was almost going to talk about this as an example of what I felt was good presentation to be celebrated, and I think it kind of is. This is the whiskey we're talking about. This is the Strathearn Batch 1. Strathearn Distillery is now owned by Douglas Lane, an independent bottler. So you can see that, I don't know if you'll see this bottle, this up close. Let's have a wee look at that one there. You can see that it says non-chill filtered on the label. It says natural color. It doesn't have an age statement there on the batch one. It tells us everything else, but no age statement. However, you turn around to the back and it says an unashamedly young, yet surprisingly mature single malt at 3 years old. Fantastic. It's not leading with 3 years old because it understands the challenge it's going to have perhaps putting there on the label. Some people that are a bit less informed, a bit less open-minded, whatever it may be, might be put off by the 3 year age statement, but they've put it on the back for people that are willing to be a bit more inquisitive. But Jason at Malt points out this, and I think this is a fundamental blunder, and it is misleading. Look at this label again. Here it says, right about here, you can see right under where the Strath part, it says first distilled in 2013. Bottled in 2019, that suggests to me people could pick up that that's a 6-year-old whiskey when it's not. It's a 3-year-old whiskey. All I had to do was put there established in 2013 and certainly make less of a play on that. Don't put that on the front. That to me is a wee bit misleading, and I agree fully with what Malt Review, with what Jason was saying there. Hope that's interesting for you to see that. I still want to try that Strathearn, by the way. I'm very curious. Whiskey Novice Jim is saying, I still think age statements matter, but they can be equally off-putting as they are eye-catching. The result being that, as with NAS, it sometimes doesn't seem right to spend good money on what appears to be young whiskey, what appears to be, because the information isn't there. But that raises the question, what is young whiskey? I certainly wouldn't have wanted to miss out on the 8-year-old Kilkerran. I even have a soft spot for that Queen Margot 3-year-old after Ralphie's recommendation. He's talking about the Aldi Queen Margot blend at 3 years old. Fantastic value, fantastic product, fantastic confidence to put a big 3-year age statement on there as well. And he's saying, personally, I've started to pay less attention to age or non-age statements and started to look closer at ABV, distillery, others' perceptions, and it's opened my eyes and other senses to some great whiskies. Again, it's just one of the layers of information. It's not the be-all and end-all. Absolutely, Jim. Goosebumps Tom inside Patreon said, age statement is one thing and it is informative, but it also matters what type of cask the whiskey has been in. Was it active? If you don't know anything about the cask, how informative is the age statement then? I think we're going to be quite a while away from somebody grading the casks in terms of their activity levels and things. But I think they can probably tell us at some point in the future, but let's pick our battles. Was it first fill, second fill, third fill? It should be a minimum for them to tell us the cask makeup. You know, was it ex-bourbon? Was it sherry? Was it other wine casks? What kind of casks were used? Was it first fill? But these, to me, should be, for product that's presented to an enthusiast, should be information that you can get your hands on, even if it's in a compass box or a Brookladdy style way. Ben Whiskey Geek through Facebook is saying, I'd like to know details of constituent stock. E.g., for example, he's saying 60% 6-year-old bourbon, 20% 8-year first fill, 20% 17-year-old. He's admitting that he's not 100% sure what he'd do with this information, but he would like to know. And he says, I struggle to see the logic and stopping distilleries disclosing this info. I agree fully with you, Ben, and I'll go one further and I'll say I think that what you would do with that information is you would be able to hone in on what profiles you enjoy as a whiskey drinker. If you're sitting there loving a whiskey that tells you that it's 80% first fill bourbon, that tells you that you're loving sweet, toffee, caramel, vanillins, all of the stuff that comes out of that first fill bourbon, and it helps you learn a wee bit more about yourself and about your whiskey journey and what you're enjoying, and it helps you make a better informed decision next time round. Helen Widdowson through Facebook is saying, whilst knowing that an age statement is generally means the minimum age of whiskey, it would be nice to know specifics from an interest point of view. The Brooklady website. The website comment was also echoed by Inga Brunsvik, who recalls a Norwegian website who discloses everything. They tell you everything on the label, everything you need to know. They don't lead with it. It's just information that's written on the label. There are other producers out there, other countries doing whiskey better than the traditional whiskey producing companies. It's old and broken now. We're going to get caught out. We need to keep up. Aaron McFault through Patreon is saying the more information, the better. What I find really interesting is information, for instance, Brooklady give with their barcodes. Ages, types of casks, amount of casks per type that went into the blend and so on. That discloses a lot more than just an age statement. I have to say that apart from the odd McMira, Ugadal or Mahir Bay, the vast majority of the bottles in my cabinet carry an age statement. It's an important factor in my purchasing decision. I realise that older is not necessarily better, but at least you know what you're paying for when there is an age on the label, rather than a Viking god. That's Error having a wee go at a Orkney distillery, of course, there. But he's absolutely right. And an age statement does give a measure of investment on the producer's part. It's another layer, another important piece of the jigsaw. I think that it doesn't necessarily define a reason to purchase or not, but it should just be, the producers should be able to tell us, especially the producers that want to tell us. Thank you all so much for your input and your comments on the lead up to the live stream. And thanks for letting me share those comments here. Okay, I'm going to jump in and speak to my friend who's been patiently waiting. I'll just check a couple of things. Blind tasting. Why have I made a note to say that I've got to talk about a blind tasting? The only thing I can think about, that's how bad my memory is, I literally made these notes today, is that I recently got a copy of a video from Bart at Scotch Test Dummies. He's completed his blind Aquavitae blind challenge, and he sent the video to me. I've got to do some editing to it and share it back with him as well. Absolutely staggering, absolutely typical Bart. Just fantastic fun to watch. When I watched the video that he'd sent me, he had me laughing out loud as well. So just in case you think that the blind challenge has kind of disappeared, last year it slowed down a bit. It was Drew from Scotch for Dummies had nominated Bart. Took me a long time to get it to Bart. Took Bart a long time to put it together. These things are never going to be particularly fast or rushed, but I hope you're looking forward to the Bart blind challenge. It's absolutely eye-opening. I think I've covered most of what I wanted to cover. Let's get my buddy Vin in and see how he's doing. Vin, Mr. No Nonsense Whiskey.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's a bit awkward. We're wearing the same shirt.
There's nothing awkward about that. I'm very pleased to see you wearing that shirt. I think you suit it a wee bit better than I do. Thank you for flying the Aquavitae colours.
Absolutely. Well, I wouldn't fly any other colours. I'm even flying the colours on the glasses today as well.
It's Aquavitae glasses as well?
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah, are you running an affiliate link with me? I've often worn the No Nonsense Whiskey polo shirt as well. It was one of my favourites. It's starting to get a bit threadbare now. I've worn the hell out of that shirt. I maybe need to get myself a newer one. Let's say there's lots and lots of comments coming in all of a sudden, and very typically I'm missing these. Anyway, how are you, my friend? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah, tired as everybody is, I think, but we're doing okay. I've got a couple of whiskies down here and a lot more off screen, so it's all good for a live stream.
I appreciate you staying up so late and moderating in the chat and waiting quite quietly in the what you would call the naughty step, waiting to come on. Thank you so much again. I know that what you're going to share with us in a few minutes is that you've prepared a quiz at the end for us, right?
Yes, I have prepared a quiz, and it's the first quiz I've ever prepared. So I'm fully expecting many people to get 10 out of 10.
Blowback.
Yeah, it's
Blowback is inevitable. You've just got to roll with it. I remember poor James Hope put a quiz together as well and shared that, and James got an absolute he got a really hard time for it. Whiskey Jason about a month ago was bracing himself as well for a lot of blowback. I think most people enjoyed that. Certainly, as I've already admitted, I enjoyed it. I liked having somebody setting questions for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got in store. Any banana skins or asshat questions?
Yeah, there's one that I would call an arse hat question, mainly because it's not really about whiskey, but I don't think it's a particularly hard question either.
Okay, good. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Let's talk a wee bit. I don't know how succinct I was tonight, but in general, what I'm trying to sum up is the age statement is important, and actually, age statement is considerably more important than age itself. Would you agree or disagree, or did you have any thoughts as you were watching and chatting tonight?
Well, I have to say, I mean, one of the things I always say on my channel is that I don't think that the age is so important because we've got good age statements, we've got bad age statements, we've got good NAS, we've got bad NAS. But I think having a number around somewhere can't hurt. You know, if you've got the audacity to put out a 3-year-old whiskey, that at least have the balls to say so, is my feeling. I think that's kind of mirrored with what you were saying on your live stream.
Absolutely. You don't even need to lead with it.
No.
If you've got the balls to put out a big, or as somebody who was it said earlier today, the lady balls, to put a big number 3 on that and put it out there, then fantastic. You might find that you get more support than you bargained from people like us that really want to engage with that honesty, that transparency.
Yeah.
But even if you don't lead with it, give us some kind of mechanism how to work out what made you come up with this whiskey. Is it a price point whiskey? Is it an interesting whiskey? Why did you come up with this? And unfortunately, as we both know, the SW regulations really come down hard when transparency is tried to be realised in the past.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like, I'm going to bring out a couple of my favourites that I like to talk about. Anyone who watches my channel will know what I think about most of this stuff. But in terms of like an OA statement that's bad, we've got my good friend, the White Walker, which I've still got some left of. I can't bring myself to drink it. It's not very good. And if you do like it, then it's fine. You know, I'm not telling people they shouldn't like things like that.
I have to say, I wouldn't go as far to say I like the stuff, but I could drink it, which probably says a lot about me. And I'm not saying I could sit and enjoy it and sip it, but I had been told it was so bad by the time, I think the sample that I tried actually came from you.
Yeah.
I think by the time that I actually tried it, I thought, oh, Christ, it's just a cheap blend. You know, it wasn't really quite as bad as I was expecting. But I think I live in a country that we've been drinking cheap blends for so long that perhaps I'm softened a bit to it. Yeah, but it's a good example of a fairly nasty, but it's a blend that it's not really meant for us.
Yeah, exactly that. And again, another good example of something that's not really meant for us. And I've got quite a few examples here of travel retail whiskey, which I think is one of the worst offenders of stuff like this. And I've got both of these they're not actually that bad. I've got a Highland Park 14 Loyalty of the Wolf, whatever that's about.
Yes.
And I've got a Balvenie 16-year-old triple cask. Both of these are, well, one's 40%, one's 42.3. That's not too bad, and they're both lovely. This is actually quite tasty, but for the price of it, 40%, probably added colour. We don't know for sure. I don't think. Oh, there you go, vPub stuff, of course. Yeah, this one I don't think says it, but it's almost guaranteed to have it.
Yeah, 40% whiskey. You know, it's going to be chill filtered as well at that ABV. Yeah. At least they're telling you triple cask. Right, they're giving you a hint about things. But look at this. That's what one of the warm-up whiskies I had tonight was a sample sent into me of that very one, the Balvenie triple cask, 40%.
Oh, okay. Wow, yeah.
I had it, and it's tasty enough. It's not a brilliant whiskey. I would say if I would steal Jason from Alt Reviews, one of his terms, it's fairly pedestrian. I think it's 16 years old. You're looking for a wee bit more. I think it's not. Again, it's not for us. That's a duty-free, isn't it? That's 16.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. Exactly. Neil Cochran is saying, Roy, the White Walker wasn't as bad as I thought it would be also. Yeah, I think that when everybody The thing is that they had an opportunity there. All the Game of Thrones releases were kind of meant to be easy entry whiskies, nice, enjoyable whiskies. I felt the ones that I tried, with the exception perhaps of the Clynelish, which was up in the 50s, higher ABV. It was a surprise to see the White Walker blend coming out there. By the way, it wasn't a cheap product either, right?
It wasn't a cheap product, no.
It wasn't a cheap blend. It was expensive.
No.
And to see it being a wee bit cynically put together and nasty. But I think in summary, we agree. And I know that you're a champion of Tomatin Legacy as well, ever since that blind tasting 2 years ago, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. We don't need to be snobby about this. We don't need to discount NAS whiskies. We don't need to discount young ages. We just need to be open-minded. But wouldn't it be nice if whiskey gave us a help? The whiskey producers, the whiskey legislators and regulators gave us a helping hand. You're going to give me another example. What's that you've got there?
So these are the ones that I would class as good no-age statement whiskies. And some of them are a bit cheaty, to be fair, because I'm a big fan of the higher ABVs, as people may well know. This is the Cotswolds. And this is the Founder's Choice, which is their special release they did.
Is that the one you gave me a sample of?
I don't think so, no, because you had a blind tasting. I might have sent you a sample of this, but I gave you a blind tasting with the standard release in there, and you said that it was quite obviously young, which is fine. It was. It's still very good. I don't think it scored very well on your blind tasting, to be fair. But this absolutely knocks the standard release out of the park. It's a lot more expensive. It's about £65. It has a batch number on it, which says the year that it was bottled, and you can make a judgment about when the distillery opened versus that to get an idea. So, but they've only been open a few years, so really it can only be a maximum of 4 or 5 years. Maximum.
That's a wee bit like Bimber, if I'm honest. I think that Cotswolds and Bimber, it's quite obvious what they're doing, but it would be nice if they just had the confidence to put it in the label.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a couple of wee pieces missing from the information from that on that Cotswolds, from what you're saying, and in Bimber. Eric, my friend Eric and supporter Eric Cunliffe, is saying, Slanty Roy, happy to get a quick watch at work. Finally, I think full disclosure and transparency is super important, and would love to see it industry wide, as would we all. Eric, as I keep going back to Menno's quote from earlier, I think it's perfect. We're kicking in, an open door. We're preaching to the converted here, but I think that as we share whiskey and we enjoy whiskey together, that we always keep that forefront, all the while trying not to be judgmental and snobby about young whiskies or non-age statement whiskies or whatever it may be. You're pouring yourself a Cotswolds.
I am, yeah. Spirit Works Tom has just said he's going to pour himself a sample, and he's asked me to give him a wave as well. So there's a wave for you, my friend. So I thought I'd have to pour myself a bit of that as well. And I'm also going to pour for a bit later on something I picked up. I don't know if you caught me picking this up. Did I send this to you? I found a 2008.
Yes, you did tell me about it. You found a Dusty.
I did find it. Well, it's funny actually, because it wasn't dusty, but it's got loads of little weird like marks on it, like juice marks on the tin.
Yeah, it's just been kicking around inside a shop for a long time.
Yeah,
it's nice when we find it. Are you enjoying it though? That's the important thing.
It's, I mean, absolutely stunning. I knew people held it in high regard. I thought, how good can it be? You know, so what if it's local barley? Yeah, this is my cynical brain coming in. Then I tried it, and it all made sense to me. And now,
coming from the guy who took a long time to come round to peat, right?
Oh, I mean, absolutely astounding that I can even drink this stuff. And again, one of the other ones I wasn't going to show this, but the Ardbeg Korviekin, which I've just covered. It's there's 2 years ago. There's no way I would have been able to drink this, and that 57.1% is just a stunning whiskey.
I'm going to open this Mortlach as I talk about your channel for a second, and I know I've said it a few times before, but one of the reasons that your channel is so good, and you were the first guy to do this, as far as I'm aware, is that you've literally gone through all your stages of your whiskey journey live on YouTube and lived it on YouTube. You've declared what you didn't like, and I always would have said to you, don't say you don't like yet. I don't like yet is better, right? Or I haven't learned how to like yet. But it's heavily sherried stuff, peated stuff. There was lots of things that you struggled to get around. And now, review by review, blow by blow, we can go back to your early reviews and hear you not adding water and refusing to add water and going through the stages that so many whiskey people do on their channel. And I've talked to you before about the idea that in YouTube you can go back and delete these videos, but they're a vital part of your channel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's really reassuring for people to see that and witness that and realize that it's all part of it. And it's nice to contrast Vin of 3 or 4 years ago, right? Or 3.5 years ago and versus the Vin of today. Anyway, my friend, are you up for giving us a bit of a quiz?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely up for giving you the quiz, but I'm kind of like keeping the expectations low on it. You know, I think it's like I said to you before the stream. I think it's an easy quiz, but that's because I know all the answers. I've made this out of my own brain. I didn't Google anything. I maybe Googled the wrong answers to see if I can make them sound very similar to the actual right answers, so that it doesn't seem too obvious what the right answer is if you don't know. But if you don't know the answer, you won't know the answer, I think, and it's one of those things. So we'll see.
You only know if you know, just as Rob from Canada. Rob, do you know we're published in Scotch Malt Whisky Society's Unfiltered magazine together? Rob over in Canada, I need to pour something to raise a glass for his dram he's just bought me. And as some of you will have heard, I've just opened this Carnmore Mortlach 12-year-old, 2007, 12 years old, 47.5%. From a sherry hogshead. Let's get the beautiful colour. I don't know if the camera is going to pick up that colour, but it's gorgeous colour. A lot of people have been saying nice things about this. Mortlach's quite a divisive whiskey. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Super fruity. Super fruity. Way more fruity than I would expect, even for a Mortlach. It's okay, it's a dark coloured whiskey, you know, it's from a sherry hogshead, but what I'm getting is freshly cut pear. Jumps right out the glass, like you've taken a conference pear and cut right through it. But white fruit, stone fruit, peaches, this is really cool because I've been on antibiotics, I haven't been enjoying flavours as much. Like a peachy, a pale stone fruit apricot. Lots of things that you don't expect on Mortlach. Not getting any of that savoury note that you would expect. I'm going to leave that sitting here for a wee minute, my friend. I'll exchange you a sample of this Mortlach for a sample of your Cotswold Founders. How does that sound?
I mean, I think I'm definitely winning there, but all I have to say, I've been a bit hit or miss with Mortlach in the past, as you probably well know.
Sherry cask, sulphur notes. You're very sulphur sensitive, I know. There's good sulphur and there's not so good sulphur for sure. Greg's Whiskey Site Guide is saying, Jesus, that colour, and I know I have Mortlach in my no more. I still don't have a Mortlach in my collection. He's saying, shame on me. Prices explain it too. Honestly, Greg, it's impossible for us to have everything all the time. Even when we do write-ups, blogs like yours, or we run channels or whatever, it's impossible. Donner Pass Whiskey, Tim is saying, still waiting on a live stream with the theme of adding drops of water to whiskey and its chemical effects with guest the Doc, McAllen, Fine and Rare. Ask the Doc if he's up for such a thing. Greg's Whiskey Ed is saying it's time to call the Moral to Porn Brigade, then Roy. I'm going to have a wee sip of this and just see how it... From my Wessex Whiskey Club coin. This is way more active and alive than I expected. I don't think you'll have a problem with this. Spicy, much more spicy. Ginger fresh. That's a nice dram, black tea. That's a nice dram, and that's from the neck pour. I think this bottle's going to surprise. Might be quite a nice little bottle to sit down. And I tell you what, for the first two people to tell me what the name of the famous still is in Mortlach in the chat, I'll send out a sample. I'll send a sample to Vin as well. So tell me, what is the name of the still and Mortlack, NZ Anime Manga saying which Mortlack was it? It's a Carnmore 12-year-old from their latest outturn. Spiritworks Tom has said Wee Witchy is absolutely right, as is Whiskey Wolverine. Whiskey Wolverine, I'm going to need your address, I think. And Spiritworks Tom, I have Whiskey Wolverine, Vin, and Spiritworks Tom. Well done, guys. I'll get a sample out to you. And I hope you enjoy this very bright and alive Mortlack. Okay, buddy, let's get this quiz on the go. We're running over 2 hours again. Of course we are. It's a mess. It's me. Thank you for your patience. Are you ready?
I'm ready, yeah.
I'll let you lead. I'm going to share the screen. What I'm going to do then is I'm just going to, I'll use the back of this envelope I've grabbed here, and I'll just put it down and write in a big felt pen on the back so that I'm participating along with everybody else. Wish me luck.
Well, good luck. I don't think you'll need it, but good luck. But good luck.
Good luck, everybody. Remember, it's multiple choice. We've all got a chance of getting these right. Take it away, my friend Vin.
Okay, so I'll put in a good mix of stuff in here. So the first one is going to be testing your knowledge of production, let's say. So we'll jump straight into it, shall we? Question number 1 then. In whiskey making, malted barley is milled into a fine flour with any husks being discarded. Name this powder. Is it A, grist, B, mash, or C, draff?
I have committed.
You have committed. Okay. We've got a lot of people coming in. Most people are saying A. I think we've got a couple of people saying B. No one's saying C, which is good. Oh, there's a couple of people saying C coming up. Interesting. But I think we've got an overarching score here. I think we better reveal. What do you think?
I'll tell you what my answer is first. Yeah. I'm going with the crowd, obviously. I'm also saying A, that it's grist.
Yeah, and as Jimmy Leg says, this was a starting warm-up question, so definitely the answer is A, grist. The curveball there was C, which was the draff, which is the husks that are being discarded. There you go. That was the curveball.
Yeah, the spent draff from the mash process. Absolutely. Fantastic.
Yeah. One of those tough ones, I think, because if you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't.
I love these guys. They're all chiming in and saying they've got 1 out of 1. Desi as well. Well done, Desi. 1 out of 1. Gixel Skipper, 1 out of 1. David Owen, 1 out of 1. They're all celebrating, as am I. Okay.
1 out of 1s. Good. Let's move on then, see if we can get that to a few 1 out of 2s. Question 2. Monkey Shoulder contains whiskey from Glenfiddich, Balvenie, and which other William Grant distillery? Is it A, Girvan, B, Elsa Bay, or C, Kinninvie? I think another easy one if you know what you're talking about. I picked this one because it's very popular in the US right now, Monkey Shoulder. Everyone seems to be going on about Monkey Shoulder. So hopefully everyone knows this. But, again, you might not.
I have to say, especially when you're approaching somebody that's just coming into whiskey, 40% ABV, blended malt, very easy, very nice, very bright, tropical fruit, quite nice dose of malt. They did talk about it being a triple malt, and I noticed they've stopped using that language now. So I do wonder if this has changed. But in the spirit of your question, I absolutely know what you're going for. So I have committed absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to say that you've probably got this right. Most people seem to have. There's a couple of people that might have been tripped up on here, but let me know what you've got. Okay, you've picked C.
C. Kinninvie.
Kinninvie, and that, of course, is correct. There you go.
Now, down in Ailsa Bay, they've got the ability to make pretty much any kind of distillate they want. So I don't know how long it'll only be from those 3 distilleries, but Monkey Shoulder might end up having a bit of lowland whiskey in there. I don't know. I really don't know.
Maybe they'll finally move on to batch 28.
Yeah, batch 28 as opposed to batch 27. Yeah. Good.
Okay, so again, I genuinely think a lot of these would be quite easy, but I've chucked a couple in there that'll be a bit different, so we'll see. Next one then.
Well, I like you so far.
Yeah. This one's a bit of a nerd question, so if you don't know, you don't know. The Malt Whiskey Yearbook is an invaluable resource for any whiskey enthusiast, but what was the first titled year? Now, this is the reason why I've said this titled year. I don't want the year of release, what the year it came out. I want the year that was on the front cover of that book. Is it 2005, 2006, or 2007? Oh, don't look round. Cheating.
I don't have it. It's really expensive to buy the original one.
Do you know what? It's the only one that I don't have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every single other one.
I'm going to be guessing here. I'm definitely going to be guessing. I really like this book. I buy it every year, as do you. I'm going to have to guess.
It's good because this definitely started tripping people up. Jimmy Legg says this is a bit of an arse hat question. I suppose it is. It wasn't intended to be, but I guess I picked the years so close together that it would be difficult to guess. So we've got a few people saying B, a few people saying C, not many saying A, but there are a couple saying A.
Well, I'm going against the grain here because lots of people seem to think it's 2006.
Okay.
I'm actually guessing that it's 2005A.
Okay. Right. So I can reveal that the first year that was on the front cover was B, 2006.
Bugger.
So I guess it was a bit of an ass hat question.
I'm going to get a row from Orange Rule again. I'm going to get a row from Rule for saying another swear word, but hey ho.
It's a tough one because I think it probably did come out in 2005 because they released in about October the year before the pictured date, let's say. So I actually did have that in the question when I first wrote the question, but I changed it to first title of year to avoid any confusion. But yeah, so we've got quite a few people on 3 out of 3, but that stumped a few people. We've got a few people on 2 out of 3 now. But yeah, lots of 3s still. Hopefully there's not going to be too many 10s out of 10s at the end. We'll see.
Well, I'm with Che Francis. I'm in 2, along with Pete Headbud Jenkins. Greg's Whiskey Guide, we're all on 2. Billy Saunders is on 2. I'm with you guys, 2 out of 3 for me. There
you go. Right, let's move on to question 4. Gregor says he's on 4 out of 3. I think he might be lying there, but you know.
Sounds like Gregor.
Okay, question number 4 then. This one might be a bit of a toughie. Masataka Takatsuru is arguably the father of Japanese whiskey, but what was the maiden name of his wife, Rita? Bit of history for you. This is A, Gao, B, Mason, or C, Cohen. Did a bit of Googling for good Scottish surnames here.
Well, I can help you with the pronunciation of Cowan.
Cowan and go.
It's cow as in cow. And in Coventry, you'd say Cowan. Rita Cowan, Rita Gow, Rita Mason.
Yeah, indeed. And I think they're all based on kind of jobs of the time. Is what my understanding was when I started Googling around for these things, but I can't remember exactly what they were now. Obviously, Mason with Cowan.
Yes.
I think people seem to know this one. This is people are mostly going for C. There's a few A's and a few B's in there. So what did you get there, Murray?
We have a knowledgeable crowd. It's, of course, from Kirkintilloch, Rita Cowan.
Excellent. I hope people would know this. Jimmy Legg's asking if I'm in Coventry. Yes, I am in Coventry, although the accent that I have is not Coventry-based. I'm from the south. There you go. Right, so I'll open this up, and it is correct. It is C, Cowan.
Yes.
There you go. Right, how are you feeling about moving on to number 5?
Is it a picture?
It is a picture. And before I reveal this picture, I did say earlier, but I don't know if Malt's review is in, if Jason is in, but I stole this from him and I didn't tell him. So
he'll be okay. He steals pictures regularly.
Okay, this one's a good one, I think. The Brook-Laddie still. This famously photographed still was at Brook-Laddie for over a decade. Where is it now? Is it in A, Ardenholme? Is it B, Waterford? Or C, Eden Mill?
What's interesting about this is it's a pictorial question, but really there's not much about the picture that can help us. We're either going to know it or we're not, right?
See, I wanted to do a distillery picture like everyone else does, but I'm famously understudied with my visits to distilleries, so I didn't want to steal someone else's picture. I don't have any good pictures of my own, so I went with something a bit cheeky. We've got a lot of people going for B. A couple of people going for A. Has anybody gone for C?
There's a bunch of people hanging around for this tonight. 180 still in for this quiz.
Wow.
Fantastic.
I think people must have heard there's a good chance for a 10 out of 10.
Not for me, unfortunately. Okay, you ready for me?
Yeah, let's do it.
B, Waterford.
B, yeah. I think this is one of those ones where it's fairly easy to know this, but if you haven't caught up with the news or you don't know who was involved with Brookladdy and who is now involved in Waterford, then you might have missed it. But there you go. The still has been refurbed and installed in Waterford and is currently producing whiskey for them, which I think is pretty cool, actually.
I think it's ex-Inverleven. It used to be an Inverleven still.
Yeah. And they both ended up one ended up out front in Brookladdy and one ended up in the Port Charlotte warehouse, and then they pulled them both out. I don't know, I'm going to say 2015, but that's just my memory kicking on. Okay, so looking through the scores, then we've got a lot of 5 out of 5s. Big Mark Monster, who's new in, I think he said he was. He's 5 out of 5. Orange Wall's got 4 out of 5. Chris Samir, he's got 3 out of 5, and he says, "At No Nonsense Whiskey, come on." So sorry, dude. I maybe came up with it a bit too easy, saying it was easy at the start, but maybe not so much after all. That's good though, right? It needs to be a bit of a challenge.
Absolutely. Great scores. Jimmy Legg is telling me to shut up.
Yeah. And he's also said ass as well. So
yeah. Smart ass, yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Vicky Thompson, 5 out of 5. Vicky, you always do really well. Hoyt, 5 out of 5. Whiskey Dram Daniel, 5 out of 5. Gregor is charging ahead on 7 out of 5.
I think Lasse Hjort.
There's a new name, Lasse Hjort Oatsman. I apologise if I'm making a mess of your name, my friend. But he's saying 5 out of 5. What's the pass mark? Congratulations, Lasse. You have a pass mark already. Well done.
Definitely. Always saying, well, 5 out of 5 is usually a pass mark, but I think for this one it might be a bit higher. We'll see.
Let's see.
Let's go on to question 6 then, see what we've got. That just showed up my little thing at the bottom here. Never mind. Okay, this was a bit of a joke question, but I don't know. This won't disappear now. Oh, hang on. Oh, no. Nobody can see that. Right. In Whiskey Tube, whilst live streaming, if you leave your chair and visit the toilet, you are said to be doing a what? Is it a Bart, a Duff, or a Queeg? I'm going to keep quiet about this. I don't want to give any clues away because this will...
Yeah, we need to keep quiet.
If you even know, you know, or you don't, you don't. I think a lot of people will know this.
Do you know who coined this?
I don't actually know.
Because me.
Was he?
Yeah.
There you go.
It was me that first ever uttered this utterance. And the poor guy. Am I talking about myself? Okay, I think we can put everybody out there's misery because not only they're a knowledgeable crowd, but they hang out on YouTube as well, so they know it to be.
They know it to be C. Queeg, and I think you've probably got that right as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was my YouTube-based question, which I think was pretty much a staple of it.
Nice one.
Royale says, we really don't want to see your little thing coming up at the bottom. I really have logged into the wrong channel. Yeah, you're quite right. And I'm not even sure how to stop that from happening. I didn't realize it did happen.
What is that? Is that your options bar coming up or something?
Yeah. I'm going to try to stop wiggling my mouse. But I think he's probably making a joke about
that's fine. Yeah.
Right, let's move on to question 7 then. Question 7. The Tobermory distillery produces a heavily peated whiskey called Leitchig. How's that pronunciation? Leitchig.
Absolutely fine with me, mate.
What does Leitchig translate to in English? Tough one, this, I think. Is it A, safe haven?
Nice.
Is it B, awakening? Or C, good inlet?
Fantastic. Potential banana skin here.
And there's, I will say something about this. The other names that I picked out of the hat here are a translation from one of their own whiskies and a translation from a town down the road. So I've been a bit naughty.
Wow.
Looks like a lot of people going for A.
One of the first articles I wrote on the website before I even had a channel, I think, they talked about this.
Did they? See, I only found this out when I was doing the research for the quiz. I thought I'd do a little messing around. I was looking around my room for some inspiration, saw Leitchig, and I thought,
Christina's Polly's in. Good to see you, Christina. Sorry to speak over you, Vin.
No, you carry
I
on.
just saw Christina's name. I wanted to give her a shout out because she's saying she would love it to be B, Awakening.
Absolutely. And I think we can reveal. What did you say, Roy?
Safe Haven.
Okay. Like Christina says, I wish it was B as well, but there is a Electric Awakening, but it is Safe Haven.
I love that it's Safe Haven. I just love that kind of concept of a safe haven, safe harbor, that kind of thing. I like Lechik as Safe Haven.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really nice
but I'd already given myself a blue tick for that before you'd even shared. That's how confident I was about that one.
If you know, you know. And it seems that this is starting to trip people up now. We've got a few 7 out of 7s from Desi, I'm going to say Vleeland.
Nigel Flynn is saying he just Googled and still didn't get an answer. And Whiskey Bond. Saying last drop. Chris is saying he's not got a clue.
No. We've got Too Slow on 7 out of 7, Stewie Babies on 7 out of 7, Kilted Moose, Rolf, Spiritworks, Tom.
Oh wow, look at these 7 out of 7s.
Yeah, I did say there was going to be a good chance of 7 out of 7s today. Welsh Story says Safe Haven and a bottle of stink. Probably fair. Okay, let's check out question number 8. In 2012 film The Angels Share, the main characters steal a priceless whiskey. Which bottle do they smuggle it away in? Is it A, Iron Brew? Is it B, Lipton Iced Tea? Or is it C, Buckfast? Again, I think this is one of those ones, if you know it, you know it. I think most people here probably will have seen it because it's one of those things where you think it's a whiskey-related film. Let's check it out.
One of the Aquavitae claims to fame is that the closing scene of that movie is filmed outside this house, more or less, just opposite.
More or less.
Yeah, no, seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
We watched them film that day.
That's pretty awesome, that is. I mean, it's I watched it, the film, and I was I thought it was a bit odd, and then when I watched it, when I watched the special features and found out that it was mostly ad-libbed and mostly kind of improvised.
Yeah.
I had like a newfound respect for it, and they did it all out of order as well, which I thought was interesting.
And the lead actor was actually a guy they picked up off the Glasgow streets.
Yeah. I think that makes it quite authentic, to be fair, doesn't it? Right, but
yeah, but it's a really bittersweet movie. It's really quite harrowing at points, but at the same time, quite a nice whiskey tale as well. And Charlie McLean's in it, of course, playing himself.
Yeah, he is credited as himself as well, which I think is brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, if you watch Ralphie at any amount of time, you'll have noticed that he, until about a year ago, actually, he had a bottle of this on his shelf, and I guess it was a reference to the film, but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he just loves the stuff. But it is, of course, a Iron Brew, and I guess that's what you said. You must have given yourself a tick for that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not just, maybe it's not a reference to, it's just a very, very Scottish thing, Iron Brew, isn't it? It's just our other national drink, as the marketers famously coined in the 70s.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny enough, like I put Buckfast in there as kind of a quintessential Scottish drink, but it's made in England, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, down southwest, Buckfast, at Buckfast Abbey, yeah.
Yeah, we don't see it down here, really. It's but when I came up to Glasgow, I saw it quite a few times.
Greg's whiskey again is saying, I don't know what Buckfast is, honestly. Greg, that's not a bad thing. It's fortified wine that's heavily abused in certain pockets of our society.
Kills Me says Scotland's other national drink. I love that, yeah. And Jimmy Legg says it's not easy to find in Canada, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, let's go on to the penultimate question and see how we're getting. But before I do that, Chris is saying, is there a chance to get over 50% for the first time? I think he's probably going to get it because he's got 5 out of 8 already. So there you go.
Yeah. Is this his first time of a 50%? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, Right, question number 9 then. Diageo own a massive distillery in Canada which is used to create Crown Royal. In which province is it situated? Is it A, Saskatchewan? Easy for you to say. Is it B, Manitoba, or is it C, Ontario? Tough if you don't know it.
Oh, you bugger, I don't know this. Oh, wow.
And this, the only reason I know this is because I covered the Crown Royal couple of years ago and did some serious research on it before I did. Whiskey Web has gone one further and told me the town where it is as well. So everyone,
Well, I'm guessing I've committed.
you've committed. Okay, let's.
I'm looking for some Canadians in the chat to see what they're answering.
Be a nice, easy one for them. And I think this is actually going to be the big one that trips a lot of people up. Jimmy Leg says there is nothing in Saskatchewan, which is true because I actually had to look up how to say that name. I'd never heard of it before.
I'm really worried because I'm answering against the grain.
Okay, show me your answer before anyone else, before you get to change it.
I'm guessing Manitoba.
Okay, I think that's a good guess because it is Manitoba.
That's a pure guess.
Pure guess. Well, I think
pure
that's
guess. Everybody was guessing Ontario.
We had a lot of people guessing Ontario because
I didn't have the confidence to give myself a tick there.
The thing about Ontario is that it's where the vast majority of the populace is. So you think that that's where they would just make stuff, but I guess they had more room over in Manitoba, and it really is massive. This place, it's like 30 or 40 distilleries in one place.
Wow, yeah, I can imagine the scale of it.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. We've got a good few people still on.
Malt Monster has said could get a perfect score for his first quiz. He's going to be wanting you to come back, Vin.
Yeah, I think so. I'll have to try and make it harder next time because it seems to be a bit easy for most. But yeah, as
Richard Hall has got his fingers crossed. He's saying, please.
Well, I had to say the next one is the one I said was the trip up one that isn't actually about whiskey. So hopefully people...
is this the Ask That Question coming? Okay, here's where the wheels are going to come off. Stewie Baby's saying squeaky bum time. Let's have it, Vin. Let's have it.
Okay, question number 10 then. The Isle of Harris Distillery is busy making their new single malt. In the meantime, they're selling a gin infused with what? Is it A, nettles? Is it B, sugar kelp? Or is it C, heather? I think you know that because you went straight to your pen and you wrote that down.
Nope, I am guessing.
You're guessing?
Same as last question. I'm just guessing. I'm not even sure I could argue that it's an educated guess.
It's got a lovely bottle, actually, one of the best bottles I've seen. And if it wasn't so much to ship it over, I think I would get it. But I'll visit them one day when I get over my seasickness, I'm sure. A lot of people, there's people saying A, B, C.
McCallum Fine and Rare is pointing out that Charlie McLean, he's putting in an objection to say he plays Rory McAllister. Yes, he's not named himself. He doesn't call himself Charlie McLean in the film, but he plays himself. Everything that he does everything he says, the way he dresses, everything. He's playing Charlie McLean just under an assumed name. Thanks, Doc.
I thought it came as a self thing. Well, I have to watch it again. It's been a good few years.
No. He does play a character name. He doesn't play Charlie McLean.
Oh, excellent. Good.
Can I tell you how relaxed I am right now? This is an amazing vPub tonight. I've actually got my feet up on the desk. Thank you, Vin.
That's good because I'm sweating. So
right, put us out our misery. What do we have?
Okay.
I've answered B, by the way, for sugar kelp.
Excellent. As Welsh Toro points out, it's too corny to not be. It's not even let me change it. There we go. Sugar kelp is the correct answer.
Yes.
Haven't tried it, to be fair. Haven't tried it. Spiritworks Tom says it's an advantage that he is a gin producer, so he knows a little bit about gins. So let's see how people got on. A few 10s coming in. Thomas Elmer's got a 10. Daniel Vermis has got a 10. Of course.
Thomas.
Big Malt Monster's got a 10.
Too slow. Daniel Vermas, Big Malt Master is celebrating. Yes.
Who was the one that said that they weren't sure if they would get a 10 or not? I missed that.
Stewie Baby Boomtown, 10 out of 10. Wow. Donner Pass Whiskey, 10 out of 10. I'm looking for Kilted Moose. 10 out of 10 for Nigel Slynn. Jens Roger Christofferson, 10 out of 10. Can I also say that the theme tonight was brought forward because of a message exchange between Jens and I. He'd brought up the discussion about age versus age statement. So thanks for that, Jens. I'm looking for the other 10 out. Donner Pass Whiskey, Tim, 10 out of 10, superb.
Yeah, I think a good
Richard Hall, yes, we'll treat myself to a new bottle of whiskey tomorrow. You've made a lot of people very happy tonight, Vin. And I have to say, I only got 9 out of 10. I didn't get 10 out of 10, but I'm very happy too. I'm very relieved.
Well, I mean, having watched a lot of your quizzes, I have to say I do feel stupid a lot of the time. So it must feel good to let everyone get some good scores for a change.
I have to say, we talked about this earlier, that it's pretty hard to kind of guess and pitch it right, because the crowd is, as you can see tonight, it's very, very knowledgeable crowd. Some of them struggle a wee bit. Gregor is saying, yeah, beauty, 20 out of 10. Welsh Toro, 10 out of 10, superb Welsh. Well done. Loads and loads and loads of you did better than me tonight. Well done. Fantastic. But yeah, it's very difficult to pitch it, and it was probably going through your mind, right? Is that how to make it? Is this feeling a bit easy? Is it feeling tricky? Am I being difficult? So yeah,
I have to say it's super difficult to make a quiz like this because, like we said to you earlier, I know what you know. I've seen some of the questions you put out, and I very, very often have to guess during the quizzes usually. So I didn't want to go too crazy. But I think if I ever got the opportunity to do this again, I would try a couple more kind of like out there. Yeah. But it's that, you don't want to be a complete arse out the whole time, right? You don't want to be getting people getting zeros out.
No, and I think that's right. And if you do put one of those questions in that's really tricky, at least let there be a layer of discovery behind it, something that's maybe going to prompt somebody to go off and discover something or think about things in a different way. That's what we're doing.
Jimmy Legg is saying, at least there's no distillery volume questions at Aquavitae. Specifically,
see, I think that's very important. I think scale of whiskey production is an important thing, and that's why I use those questions. But I don't mean to defend it, Jimmy. You're absolutely right. The whiskey volume questions are very much asshat, as you would term them. Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, there you go. That's the end of my quiz. Hopefully, everyone enjoyed the questions and maybe learned a thing, because I think there was a couple of questions in there that people weren't sure about. So hopefully it kind of helped the learning process a little bit. But yeah.
I think you, like Jason, will be asked to come back again and do a quiz sometime in the future again. I think that's probably going to go down quite well. Lots of people happy that they scored quite well, and lots of people managed to get a full house tonight. Fantastic stuff. I'm very grateful as well, Vin. I'm very grateful for you coming along here and sitting on a naughty step all that time, very quietly in the background, moderating the chat, doing everything you do, doing the quiz for me, and more than anything, bringing what you bring twice a week, every week. Mr. Consistent, as I like to call you. And I'll raise a wee glass and I'll say thanks to you.
Thank you as
Cheers,
well.
my friend. Thank you for that.
No problem at all.
I'll close out now, as I am about a good 7 or 8 minutes over. I don't really mind. I don't think anybody really minds. Still 165 of them hanging in right till the very, very end. What I'll say to close out, to say thank you to everybody. Remember, there's a Facebook group. Remember the Aquavitae Barflies Facebook group. It's a Facebook group that's been put together purely to encourage people to talk about the events, their clubs, starting a club, going to a whiskey tasting, going to some whiskey trip or distillery, whatever you're doing in real life. That's the place to share that, in the hope that you can meet up with fellow Barflies, fellow whiskey folk from the community. Come along and join that group. I'm just about to appoint some administrators to that group, and Vin for some time now has been offering to lend a hand there as well and help me take a bit of weight off my shoulders and help administer that, and I'd be very, very grateful. Facebook to me is a black hole. Probably the comments that I ignore most, and I do apologise and thank everybody for your patience. I'm getting better more recently, getting on top of it and picking them up. I used some of the Facebook comments even tonight, both in the Aquavitae page and also the Barflies page. But I'm becoming more and more active in Facebook, and it's that Barflies group that's drawn me in there more. So come along and join that. Jan Paul Vanderhoven is saying, most important age statement this evening. My oldest son turned 21 today, having a Springbank 21 now. That's incredible. Happy birthday to Master Vanderhoven. I'll raise a glass, Jan, and I'll say sláinte to him, his health, and happy 21st birthday to him. Tell us his name, Jan Paul. Tell us his name. So the Facebook group, yes, come along. And there's another couple of admins I'm speaking to just now to bring them on board to help manage that as it's starting to grow. It's already, I don't know, about 250 people in, and it's quite a young group. Per Christensen is in as well. Per, always good to have you in, my friend. Great vPub tonight, Roy, and thanks, Vin, for a great quiz. There you go. I would like everybody to show a wee bit of love and say thanks to Vin for putting the questions together. And again, taking a wee bit more weight off my shoulders too. The next vPub will be 2 weeks from now. So if my calculations are right, that'll be the 27th of February, a Thursday night. There will be, in between now and then, there'll be a patron-only lock-in for all you patrons out there. I know that I'm due one for February, and I'm looking forward to bringing that with you as well. I've got a wee bit of an idea of something. If you look over my shoulder here, I've got 2 blind tastings sitting there, stacked up and ready to go. One I can do individually on my own. The other one is a team effort because there's a few guys out there with the exact same set of samples. So we might choose to do that. But it won't be the whole entire lock-in. It'll be very much about hanging out with patrons. And then we can do the blind tasting afterwards. And those of you who want to stay around and watch us go through our pain can do so. Thanks to everybody for joining in for another vPub. I know it overran a wee bit, but these things tend to do so. And I want to thank everybody as I raise a glass and say thank you to you all for joining in. Tonight, you did not drink alone. And I very much look forward to hanging out with you 2 weeks from now. Slancheva, you fantastic whiskey folk. Good night.